the New York Knicks. We are the New York Knicks. We are the New York Knicks. We are the New York Knicks.
Say go New York, go New York, go.
Go New York, go New York, go.
Say go New York, go New York, go.
Go New York, go New York, go.
We're back on track on the floor, scoring more. It's 94, and the Knicks are hardcore. And I'll tell you like this, we ain't never looked sharper. With Hubert, Bonner, Gray, and Harper, it's the Knicks, and we're back on pace. Everyone's gearing up for the championship race, and the fans are going crazy, and they're doing it for a reason. Cause 94 is the Knickerbocker season. You better believe the Knicks got all that it takes. We're shooting three-pointers, and we're running fast breaks, and if your defense makes a mistake, then bam, Ewing dunks in your face. This is a team you don't wanna miss. We are New York. We are the New York Knicks. Go New York, go New York, go.
Go New York, go New York, go.
Say go New York, go New York, go.
Go New York, go New York, go.
Say go New York, go New York, go.
Go New York, go New York, go.
So yo, bust it. All you hear is a swish. Threes by Starks and dunks by Smith. And no rebounds. If that's the case, we put Oakley and Mace in your face. We draw charges and we set picks. We are New York. We are the New York Knicks. Say go New York, go New York, go.
Go New York, go New York, go.
Say go New York, go New York, go.
Go New York, go New York, go.
Go!
What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the latest episode of The Layup.Line. My name is Dolos, and if you're new to this channel, you should definitely consider subscribing for NBA videos like this one. You can also find me on a few social media platforms for inside looks at upcoming videos, as well as reactions to live games or transactions. I'd also like to announce that me and my guy Rose have started a Lakers podcast called Strive for Legacy. We already have a few episodes out, so I highly recommend checking that out. We've had some great conversations. There's stuff to be entertained by and stuff that you could learn even if you're not necessarily a Lakers fan, so definitely go check it out, link in the description. But moving on to today's video subject, I'm going to be talking about the New York Knicks and specifically why I think they deserve so much credit and so much love for what they were able to accomplish this season in ending their playoff drought. Now, this wasn't the longest or most historic playoff drought in NBA or sports history. It's been 8 years since the Knicks' last playoff appearance, but the Knicks front office had managed to pack in a whole lot of misery into that 8 years, so I kind of really wanted to go into what makes this season so different. I want to frame just how phenomenal the Knicks season was this year, because last year they won 21 of 65 games. They fired their coach mid-season and were famously one of the Delete 8 teams that did not get invited to return in the NBA bubble. This was the year that their front office had missed out on every single big-name free agent that was speculated or hoped to come to New York. Instead, 25-year-old Julius Randle was the consolation prize left for Knicks fans, and they would also proceed to get clowned for signing a bunch of power forwards and centers that offseason. The year was just an overall failure. Randle had an uninspiring first year in New York, but fans and analysts all thought that that was expected to be a short-term signing anyway. For one, I think the team knew this as well, because his contract was only partially guaranteed. Next season, he's only guaranteed for $4 million. So that shows that they kind of necessarily didn't have him in mind long-term building out. Secondly, they also went ahead and drafted a 22-year-old at his position with a lottery pick. So those are just kind of signs that Julius Randle was not necessarily intended to be the long-term fix for the New York Knicks' problems. As much as this year was a surprise for fans, New York's front office was surprised by how well the year's gone too. New executive and president Leon Rose and Worldwide West have gotten a lot of credit for changing things up with the Knicks, but I do want to highlight some other key parts of why the Knicks are good this season. One big difference is that there is now a star in the Garden. Julius Randle finished a career year that will likely see him win the Most Improved Player award. He got his first All-Star selection, and he will likely be selected to an All-NBA team. He's become a drastically better three-point shooter, with his percentages going up to 41 on nearly 6 attempts per game. And even if his percentages were to dip and regress, the leap from that 27% that he shot last year on 4 attempts is the best we've ever seen. Randle has always preferred taking shots in the mid-range, but his percentages there have increased as well. The improved scoring jump has seen him become the focal point of the Knicks offense, where he showed improved passing abilities as well. there's still a lack of overall shooting on the team at times. So Randle has seen a lot more double teams and defenses have focused on stopping him. In the past, the ball would stick in his hand and that would lead to poor decisions and turnovers, bad shot making, but he is just a lot more willing to give it up and find a great look instead of a good one. His assists have climbed as a result from 3 to 6 a game, while seeing a small bump in the turnovers per game. There were plenty of helpful rotation players for the Knicks this past season. They had RJ Barrett, who had a highly improved sophomore season, Nerlens Noel and Mitchell Robinson being defensive anchors in the paint. Alec Burks and Reggie Bullock were reliable 3-and-D players for them. Emmanuel Quickley and then the midseason addition of Derrick Rose gave them a reliable scoring and playmaking backcourt rotation. So yes, plenty of guys deserve credit, but Julius Randle making that leap into a star is what really drove winning for the Knicks this year. I'd also like to talk about the architect of this Knicks roster, Scott Perry. While the NBA fans and media were focused on speculating whether KD and Kyrie would team up in the Garden, Scott Perry had clearly already done his homework and knew that the Knicks were not going to be signing any of the big name free agents. So from day one, he was already speaking with Julius Randle. Scott Perry is also the guy that drafted RJ Barrett. So just make sure that you're including Scott Perry when you're giving flowers to Leon Rose or Wes Wesley for what they've done for the Knicks. I'd also need to mention that Scott Perry was around prior to them, so he was a member of some less successful Knicks front offices, but once we've seen him empowered with some decision-making ability, those decisions have tended to work out. I absolutely also need to give credit to head coach Tom Thibodeau, because he did a masterful job connecting with the players on the roster and getting them to buy in to what he wanted to do. With the roster being generally the same as last year, the Knicks went from 23rd ranked on defense to being 3rd in the league. The young players on the roster also seem to develop under Tom Thibodeau, which is something that he has had a reputation for not doing too well. And Tom will no doubt be a top 3 finisher for Coach of the Year, and he's another huge factor that has them looking legitimate this season. There have been a lot of people trying to throw cold water on the Knicks season, whether it was those just dismissing their relatively hot start or after they had actually clinched the playoffs, making claims that they'd be an easy first round out. Not that I think that New York will be a first round out, but I'd say even if they were to get swept in the first round, there's no way that you can view this season as a disappointment, because I'd like to point out, to start this season, Knicks fans were at the forefront of the tank for K discussions, so the fact that they are now a home court advantage team in the playoffs, that's just a huge success, and personally I'm excited to see on how they can build on it. But that's just my opinion. Leave a like if you learned something new, if you like what I do. Don't forget to subscribe and make sure that you check out the Strive for Legacy podcast with me and my guy Rose. Thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.